Hello, this is Matt Pullin again, and I was looking for other games of mine to show you, and I started looking at some of my high school games, and most of them were pretty awful, but I did find this one. This one was played in 1999. It was at some high school tournament, and I was black, and my opponent was Ivan Rasskazov. And I'm not going to spend too much time on the opening. I just want to get to the middle game because he made a pretty instructive mistake, and I want to talk about it. So it was d4, d5, c4, e6. It was a semi-Slav. He played e3, and some more moves were played. I wait until he moves his bishop to d3 before I capture, so that his bishop has to spend another tempo to take the pawn. And knight d7. I play knight d7 instead of b5 because my idea is when he plays e4, I want to play e5 instead. So castles, castles, e4, e5, bishop g5, queen c7. All this is pretty solid, but his next move is kind of weak. He takes on f6, and I think that d4 to d5, the pawn push, is worth a look for him in this position. So he took and I take, and this doesn't really give black any problems. He plays there, which maybe he should have played h3 to avoid this bishop move. So I have very active pieces, my rooks are connected, I'm fully equalized here. So he takes the pawn and I take with bishop. And in this position I'm threatening bishop takes h2 with check because his knight is pinned to the queen. And h3 would be the best way to defend that pawn by moving it, and it also threatens my bishop, so he's putting the question to me, do I want to take or do I want to drop back? So h3 would be a correct move here. He defended it with g3, which I think it might be the losing mistake, because the light squares, especially f3, is very weak, and this pin on the knight is very hard to break. So g3 creates incredible weaknesses. It's if you put the pawn on g3, it's better to have the bishop on g2 to cover up some of those weaknesses. So I get on the open file with rook a d8, and he plays queen e2 to get off of the file. And now, how do I exploit the pin on the knight on f3? I play rook d4 because the knight is pinned. If he captures, then I capture his queen. And at this time I'm threatening to capture his knight. And then after queen takes, I take the bishop because the queen is overworked on e2. So he moves the bishop to defend against this. He goes to d3. And I move the other rook over, threatening the bishop, and he moves his rook over. And now e5 would be a very powerful square for my knight. But first I have to move the bishop. And there's no good square to move the bishop, so to move the bishop I need to move the knight first. So I go to d7 with the idea of coming with my knight to e5, or maybe even coming to c5. And he plays queen e3 to break the pin, so now he's threatening knight takes rook. So I trade, I grab that piece on f3, and here I continue with my plan. I put the bishop on f6, preparing knight e5, which would be a very strong move. It would fork the queen and the bishop on d3, and the bishop on d3 only has two pieces, the rook and the queen, defending it. So he gets out of that by moving the bishop to c2. So I put the knight on e5 anyway, and he plays queen e2. And look at this position for a few seconds, because it is black to play and win a piece. Again, the theme is that weak square on f3, which was as a result of him pushing his pawn to g3. Alright, here's another hint. It's a fork that sets up another fork. Did you see it? I played rook d2. And if he takes this rook, I take with my other rook, and it maintains the fork on his queen and bishop. And if he then plays queen takes rook, I have knight f3 check, which is a royal fork. It attacks both the queen, rook, and king. So he did not take the rook. He played queen e3, and I took his bishop. And so now I'm up a piece, and he took the rook on d8, and I took the queen, and he got on the open file to challenge my queen. But I did not move the queen. I did not have to. I played rook d2, and again it uses the same square on f3, because if rook takes, which he did, and queen takes, now he cannot play queen takes because then knight f3 check, and then I take the queen, and I'm winning the ending easily because I have two pieces against one piece. So he moves the queen away. He goes to a7, maybe threatening my back rank, although I can block with the queen on d8. But just in case, I play g6 to get off the back rank. He takes, and I play g7 with my king. So now I'm going to attack his king and try to force checkmate. He plays queen b6 to get to the defense of his f2 pawn. And I play knight g4, which threatens to play bishop d4, which attacks his queen and threatens the pawn on f2, which would be attacked 3 times. So he responds to this by attacking the knight. I think one of us is very low on time because the rest of the moves of this game are in someone else's handwriting. So h3, if bishop d4 now, he'll take the bishop and then he'll take the knight. He'll get 2 pieces for the queen. But knight takes f2 is a lot stronger because if he takes this, then I can still play bishop d4, which pins the queen to his king. So it's a little stronger, I guess, than playing bishop d4 right away, because it gets that f-pawn off the board. So he moves his king away, and I move my knight away for discovered check. If he plays king f1, then I play knight e3 check, and it's mate in 1 unless he gives up his queen. And if he goes anywhere else, then I probably play queen h2. So he goes to the only other square. He goes to f3, and now knight h2 is the perfect checkmate. All the squares around his king are covered exactly once. So that was my game from 1999 against Ivan Rasskazov. I hope you learned something from this game, like the weakness of f3 after you push g3 without the bishop there, and how you can exploit forks and pins. So I will see you later if I decide to make another chess video. I hope you enjoyed it. Goodbye.